The Shock Therapy Podcast.
It's that boom, 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 boom.
At that point, electric current is passed between the electrodes in the head.
That shit just kicked in. I just feel like I smoked 1,000 blunts.
For discovery brings with it the penalties of society. Shame, arrest, prison.
Oh, sorry, I was taking life seriously.
I'm over the end dangerous territory. This is dangerous territory right here. I'm in.
I don't know what psychotic means, really.
What's up, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to the Shock Therapy Podcast for Tuesday, October 20th. I'm your host, Carson McGregor, and today I want to tell you guys a story. This is a story that I just became familiar with. I'm a big true crime fan, and I'm surprised this has never crossed my plate, my internet search history. This seems like something that'd be right up my alley, but I was listening to this song by A$AP Rock. The song's called Acid King. And in it, he tells this story about a guy that steals drugs from another kid. And so that kid lures him out into the woods and stabs him to death. It's a crazy-ass story. And I'm thinking, man, that was really deep. That was something that probably took a while for him to think up, for him to write. I go on the Rap Genius to decode some of these lyrics, and turns out it's a true story, or based on a true story. The story of this guy, Ricky Kasso. Now, Ricky Kasso was this kind of drugged out teenager. This all happens in Suffolk County, New York, in 1984, and he's a member of this tight knit group of misfits up in this area who have all either been kicked out of their homes or ran away from home. It's not like a poor, broken down area. It's a middle class, white collar suburb. And all these families that these kids come from, it's not like they lost their families or they're from broken homes. It's that they just didn't align with their parents in some way, shape, or form. So they're out on the fringes and they're doing a bunch of drugs. It's this drugged out teenager subculture up in suburban New York in the 80s. And this all takes place in alignment with the whole satanic panic thing that happened with rock and roll, where rock and roll was catching all this flack for preaching Satanism, preaching the devil to kids. All these worried parents were, accusing bands like Black Sabbath of being satanic and, giving their kids these evil messages, whatever. And that's why the story kind of became a press field day. And because it kind of check marks a bunch of boxes of murder, Satanism, and drugs. It's a pretty exciting story, especially for the early 80s. So Ricky Kasso is the local mescaline and acid dealer. So he's kind of a known guy in the area. He's friends with a lot of people because everybody wants to be friends with the drug supplier. And if you weren't friends with him, you at least knew who he was because he was sort of infamous, the infamous drugged out dude. And he's buddies with this other guy, James Troiano. James Troiano, kind of a similar cat, just real broken down relationship with his family, and so he's traded school and the normal life of the suburbs for breaking into houses and doing drugs and going to parties. So they're best buddies. They're like two peas in a pod, like Mario and Luigi, Turner and Hooch, just a dynamic duo of mischief. I don't know. And then you got the victim in this story, Gary Lauers. Gary Lauers is another part of this group of runaways, 17 years old, and people that knew him at the time describe him as being kind of airheaded, kind of easily tricked, a dope. I don't want to call him stupid or call him a dummy or anything. I just, that's how people describe him, is this kid that totally should not have been in the position that he was in. He was a good-hearted guy. It was just that he was very easily manipulated. So when his relationship with his parents wore down, he ended up with the wrong group of people and doing the wrong things. And then you got Albert Quinones. He's the least important character in the story, but he was there, so I have to mention him. So Ricky, the main character, the devil worshiper, he's gotten really into the devil and into Satanism. Ever since he was around 14 years old, he went to the library, the public library, read some books on Satanism, and it was kind of something that everybody knew about him, that he just liked this identity, this culture of devil worship. He thought it was really cool. And he'd actually been arrested for breaking into a cemetery and digging up a corpse. And that's why he got kicked out of home. That's why he wasn't living with his parents anymore, because he'd gotten arrested and his father was like, that, enough is enough. You're fucking done here. Never contact the family again. Gave him $2, said, go fuck yourself. That's how he ends up on the street. And so he's living off the streets, this kind of weird drug dealer, Satanist kid. And he's always hanging out with his buddy, Jimmy Troiano, who is decidedly less into this culture of devil worship. It's not really his thing. He's more just into crime. He's more just into getting high and committing crime. And one day, I'm trying to set up this story as best I can, so bear with me. It's all very new to me, and I've just been reading a bunch of articles about it. So one day, this guy, Gary Lauers, is at a party, and he sees Ricky Casso, the drug dealer, passed out, and so he steals 10 bags of angel dust off of him. And they're friends up to this point. They're buddies. I wouldn't say they're close, but they're definitely friends. They're definitely friendly. And Ricky finds out after not long, somebody, the word gets around the grapevine, and he finds out that Gary's the one that stole the drugs off of him. So he tracks down Gary, and he just beats the living shit out of him a couple different times. It's like he finds him, he beats the shit out of him. He's like, "Where's my fucking drugs? Where's my fucking money? Whatever." And Gary's like, "I don't have your drugs. I'll get you your money." And Ricky's like, "Cool." And then he never gets him the money. And then Ricky finds him again. And he beats the fuck out of him a second time. And he's like, "Where's my fucking money?" And Gary's like, "I'll get it to you. Relax." This cycle goes on for a while until eventually Ricky's like, "Look, I've beat the tar out of you like 6 times. I think you've paid your debts at this point. I think that's enough. Just forget about it." It was like $50, a $50 debt. And so he kind of says, forget about it. It's fine. Let's just be cool. Let's be buddies. Whatever. And so they're hanging out one night at this gazebo that all the burnout druggy kids would hang out at. And they're all just getting high on angel dust, eating fucking jelly donuts. That's what was going on at this particular night. And so it's these 4 guys. It's Jimmy Troiano, Ricky Casso, fucking Gary Lauers, and Albert Quinones. These 4 dudes. And Ricky is trying to get Gary to go out into the woods with them. It's like, "Hey man, come out into the woods with us. Let's get high. Let's do a bunch of acid. I got this spot. It's real cool nature spot. We could start a fire." Gary doesn't want to go, but eventually he convinces him. Like I said, Gary is an easy person to trick. And so they all go out into the woods together. They do about 10 hits of acid apiece. Now, I've never done angel dust, so apparently they're going bag by bag of angel dust, but I don't know. I can't put that in any type of context because I don't know anything about the drug, but 10 hits of acid is a fuckload of acid. I think I've only ever done 3 at one time, and that was enough. So 10 hits, I don't even know what type of shit you'd be seeing. So 10 hits of acid at least for each person. And they're out here in this dark part of the woods outside of the suburbs. And Ricky's trying to make a fire. And he can't do it. Just for some reason, he can't get the fire made. So Gary offers up his socks. He's like, hey, we can, you got a lighter. You just burn my socks. That's how we could start the fire. And Ricky's like, cool. But the fire is real small. They can't really get it going with just that. And so Ricky's like, hey, man, what about your jacket? Can I use your jacket? And Gary's like, I don't know, man. This is like my only jacket. How about this? I'll cut the sleeves off the jacket. You can use the sleeves on my jacket. He says, cool. So they get the fire started. They get it going. And Ricky keeps pressing him about, hey, man, let me use your jacket. Let me use all your clothes. Just, take your clothes off so we can fucking use them for the fire. And Gary's like, look, that's enough. That's enough clothes right there. I'm not going to give you everything I got on just to make this fucking fire. And so they have this little shitty fire. They're all peeking out on acid. And all of a sudden, Ricky, after getting frustrated with Gary for not giving him his clothes for the fire, jumps him and just starts beating the shit out of him. And before this is all according to the statements of Jimmy Troiano and fucking what's his face? Damn, I just forgot his name. Albert Quinones. Here we go. We're back in it. This is all according to the statements of Jimmy Troiano and Albert Quinones, that at one point before Ricky jumps him, Gary says, I got this weird feeling that you're going to kill me. And that's the type of shit you might say on acid, just to be fair. You might just be like, hey, man, I think you look like you're going to kill me right now. The guy's like, what are you fucking talking about? But he says that, and Ricky's like, man, I don't know what you're talking about. You're crazy, man. You're crazy. But he jumps him, starts beating the shit out of him, and he pulls a knife out on him. And he starts yelling at him to say you love Satan. That's where a lot of the headlines in this story start to get made. You know what I'm saying? He yells at him, say you love Satan, say you love Satan. Gary won't fucking do it. Like, good on you, Gary. Honestly. That's when I'm reading this story, and that's when I start to be like, good looks, Gary. Have some goddamn conviction about something. They're out here doing drugs in the woods, getting completely fucking plastered. They've all cut ties with their families, but Gary's gonna stand his ground on this one. I'm not gonna say I love Satan. He's being stabbed at this very moment. Ricky pulls a knife out on him, starts stabbing him in the chest, and Gary won't fucking do it. He won't say he loves Satan. He says, I love my mother. That's his quote, according to Jimmy Troiano. He says, I love my mother. So Ricky stabs him a bunch of times, just bleeds him dry. And Ricky and Jimmy carry Gary's body over to a leafy part of the woods to bury him. And then all of a sudden, once they set him down, Gary sits up. He's not dead. They didn't get him. Knife didn't go deep enough. So Ricky gets on top of him, and he starts just mauling him with this knife right in the face, right in the fucking old grape. Just right in the eye socket. Just goes ham. 40 to 50 times he stabbed him in the face. And after that, it's lights out for Gary, obviously. And the whole crew, the three remaining dudes, just leave the woods. They just leave. They don't want to be around that anymore. Obviously, Albert, who wasn't involved, was a little bit shaken up. Jimmy, who was semi-involved, is probably a little bit shaken up, thought it was crazy. And Ricky is not shaken up at all. According to the other two guys, he doesn't give a fuck. He thinks it's hilarious. They're walking out of the woods after just murdering this kid, and Ricky's like, oh man, isn't that crazy? That's fucking awesome. And in the following days, nobody really notices that Gary's missing He's a runaway. His parents don't call the cops or anything because him not coming home, that's par for the course. His friends don't call because his friends they're all kind of in the criminal element, so they're not going to call the cops for any reason. And slowly people in that friend group start to be like, where the fuck is Gary? I haven't seen Gary in a long time. They want to go travel up north to see the Grateful Dead, and they're looking for this guy Gary to invite him, but they can't get eyes on Gary. Nobody's seen him. And during this time, this week after the crime, Ricky brings about a dozen or so people separately to go see Gary's body. For no reason other than he just kind of wants to brag about it. He'll bring people out into the woods, be like, you want to see fucking Gary's dead body? And they're like, you didn't fucking kill Gary. There's no way you killed Gary. He brings him out there and it's like, holy shit, you actually killed Gary. So he brings about a dozen or so people. None of them go to the cops. None of them go to the cops. They did interviews with these kids afterwards. And they all said, like, I don't know, man. I don't know. I have no idea why I didn't go to the cops. It's like, you're a kid. You think something could happen. You think, like, if you go to the cops, then Ricky's going to find you and kill you. Or you think you're going to somehow be connected to it. Like, all these potential bad things could happen by going to the police. So they all figured, fuck it, I'm not going to do it. And it doesn't look like anybody's going to find Gary's body. Nobody's looking for it. Nobody's looking for it. No leads are out there. The police are unaware of this situation completely. So Ricky and Jimmy decide at this point, about a week later, to go on a road trip. They just want to go see the sights. No particular reason. They just want to go travel around. And so they buy a car for $50. Ricky sells some bags of angel dust and they buy a car. And they go traveling around. Just, smoking dope on the road. I don't know. And in this period of time when they're on the road, there's an anonymous call to the local police by a girl who overheard a friend of hers talking about, seeing Gary's body. Who overheard what happened. Who overheard one of the people who Ricky had taken out to the woods to go see the body. And so she calls the cops anonymously. And she's like, look, I know who killed Gary Lauers, and I know where he's buried. And up to this point, the cops are like, who's Gary Lauers? What are you talking about? Like, we're not looking for anybody named Gary Lauers. So they don't really take it seriously. They kind of think it's a crank call, but they go check it out anyway because they're cops and they're doing their job. And they go to this area that the caller told them to go to, and they find Gary's body. And the caller, who called it in, said that Ricky and Jimmy were responsible for the murder. And so the cops are looking for Ricky and Jimmy. They can't find these guys. Nobody knows where they are. It's the 80s. There's no cell phones. There's no way to track them down. You just kind of have to keep your feelers out there. They're asking all their friends, "You seen these guys? You seen these guys?" No, we haven't seen them. But they do track down Albert Quinones because Albert's still in town. And he won't talk. At first, he won't say shit. And according to him, he was like, the detectives, they beat the shit out of me for days. They just fucking kicked my ass for days. Because, I really can't imagine this, but there was a time where detectives didn't really abide by any rules ever. There was nobody watching. That's a pretty hot topic today of police brutality and, police misconduct. But back in the day, it wasn't even an issue that was being discussed. Nobody was talking about it. And so they were just beating the tar out of Albert for days, but he wouldn't talk. And then once Albert got word that Jimmy and Ricky had gotten caught, that's when he decided to speak up. I'm sure for self-preservation, because he's like, fuck, one of these two idiots is going to talk, so I might as well, get there first. What is the fucking expression, the first pig to the fucking slop gets the most, or whatever. You want to be the first guy to tell the cops the real story so that you can get the best deal in court. But I kind of got ahead of myself there. So Ricky and Jimmy, they're on the road still, but they come back in town because they want to party with their friends on 4th of July. So they come back, and they get in at around nighttime, and they just go to a party. They go to a 4th of July party, and it's fucking normal. Everybody's like, oh, hey, what's up, Ricky? What's up, Jimmy? Nobody's thinking anything of it. They do a bunch of angel dust. Have themselves a great night. And they go back to the car, and they just pass out. They go to get some rest. In the morning after that party, somebody calls the cops with reports of a stolen vehicle. And the cop goes to check it out, just thinking normal, or did I say stolen vehicle? I meant to say just suspicious vehicle. A suspicious vehicle, because it wasn't stolen. So the cop, he's not thinking anything of it. He's thinking just, randomly somebody parked a car where it's not supposed to be parked. He goes to check it out. He walks up and he sees these kids in there, and he's like, holy shit, that's Ricky and Jimmy. And these are the guys we're looking for that killed that other kid. So he calls for backup. Backup shows up. They all pull their guns out. They're like, yo, get on the fucking ground. Ricky and Jimmy, they're sound asleep. They're waking up. They're rubbing shit out of their eyes. And they're like, hey, yo, what's going on here? They get arrested. They get cuffed. They get brought back to the station. At this point, Albert has talked. Ricky and Jimmy don't know that. So Jimmy, he signs a confession when he first arrives at the station. But to be fair, he's on a bunch of drugs. Still. They're not completely out of his system. His lawyer would later go on to argue this point, because after he signs this confession, he doesn't say anything. He doesn't tell them any details. He actually denies it the entire time. Ricky, on the other hand, after denying it for a little bit, decides to just come clean. He just speaks up, and he sings like a canary. He tells them everything. He's like, yeah, me and Jimmy did this shit. We fucking killed him. We stabbed him. Satan told me to do it. That was his reasoning. And that's when the press got involved. All this stuff was a lot of setup for the press to swoop in and take this story. But when he tells these cops, Satan was the one who told me to do this, to kill Gary, that's when they really start getting involved. Because the cops didn't expect this. The cops, they're thinking, oh, this is just some, random drug feud or something. They think it's probably somebody didn't get paid for something, which I guess is what happened, but they couldn't have suspected it was something like Satanism. That was the reason. So they report on it. They write up this report that Ricky's reasoning for killing him was for satanic ritualistic reasons. And 2 days later, Ricky hangs himself in his jail cell. So it's lights out for Ricky. The killer, the one who did this, takes his own life in his jail cell after making a confession. And so everybody's just shocked. Everybody's just blown away that this could have happened, that this fucking poor kid got killed. And their only reasoning that they could surmise is because this other kid was into devil worship. And so the newspapers, they all print shit that says, devil worship in a suburban neighborhood. Hide your fucking kids. What are your kids up to right now? Don't fucking play the new Black Sabbath album. And I think what really compounded onto this was the fact that his mugshot when he was arrested, he's wearing an AC/DC shirt. So that's really adding fuel to the fire, that rock and roll is responsible for all this. And so Jimmy Troiano, is the last surviving member that's still on trial for this because Albert Quinones has gotten himself immunity for talking first. And he goes to trial. And he's found not guilty because his lawyer argues they were all on pretty heavy drugs, hallucinogenic drugs. You can't discern reality from fiction, so there's no way to really convict him for a murder when he's in that state of mind, when they all knew that Ricky Casso was really the one that instigated the crime and did it for the most part. So Jimmy's found not guilty. He's free, walking around today. He wrote a book on it, actually. I haven't read it, but he did write a book on it. And they're kind of just left, putting the pieces back together in this little suburban community of New York. Like, was there really some satanic shit going down here? Because all the press was reporting that Ricky was in a satanic cult called the Black Circle. And that he was in this group of friends that was a cult, and they were doing sacrifices and ritual type shit and worshiping Satan, which was all horseshit. It was all proven to be untrue. It's kind of like the Trenchcoat Mafia. Remember the Trenchcoat Mafia with Columbine? That, you know, the press was reporting, oh yeah, there was this like underground Trenchcoat Mafia of these kids that were all going to commit violent acts. Like, and it turned out to be complete bullshit. That these two kids were just sick, and so they committed this act out of sickness and just anger and fucking, I guess the one kid, pure evil. But it's kind of the same shit here, you know. It's kind of a mixture of Ricky Casso being an angry, just fucking kicked out of his home when he was, 16 years old. Didn't really have anybody to support him. Got into the wrong things at a young age. Got into drugs at a young age. Got into fucking devil worship. Not really, but got into this idea of devil worship. Thought of it as a really cool thing. All these factors kind of came to a head when he murdered Gary Lauers. Because also they had drug beef. They had this this outstanding $50 debt, which just seems like so little, especially today. It seems like so little. Like, kill somebody over $50? Are you fucking shitting me? But there was that. So that was the tipping point. I'm sure that Ricky Casso, with all these dark influences and his drug use, kind of not being able to discern what's real and what's not real, he was going to do something eventually, and that was just the opportunity to do something. It's a fucking crazy story, man. It's a fucking crazy-ass story. I mean, there's no explanation. If you were looking for an explanation, there is none. You can assume that it was random, and it was just this kid who was fucking evil, and he was an asshole, and he wanted to go out and kill somebody. You can assume that the corruption of rock and roll music was to blame, but at the end of the day, you can't really know, because the two survivors of this, Jimmy Troiano and Albert Quinones, they can't explain it. They can't explain why it happened. They can confirm the events. They can confirm that he told Gary to say that he loved Satan. They can confirm that Ricky was really into this culture of devil worship. They can confirm that they were all on fucking 10 hits of LSD that night. But they can't really confirm a motive, a true motive. Because of the Son of Sam killer, if you're familiar with the Son of Sam killer, very similar situation. He tells investigators that he killed this person because the next door neighbor's dog was the devil. The devil had personified himself in this dog and told him to fucking kill people. And that turned out to be horseshit. That turned out to be a complete lie. And that spawned a lot of this satanic panic type of shit. So I think it's a similar thing. I think it's, he was just telling investigators something to maybe get himself insanity in the long run. And then he decided, fuck it, I'm not going to run with that. I'm just going to take the easy way out. I don't know. I wouldn't call suicide the easy way out. I would never say that, because that is not the case. I mean, could you imagine? Could you imagine being in a jail cell and having to fucking hang yourself? Jesus Christ. Not saying the kid deserves mercy, but fucking hey, that seems like brutal. But what he did was brutal too, man. What he did was fucking brutal. To stab your buddy 40 times in the face? Ugh. Look, I've done a bunch of acid in my life. I've done a bunch of fucking crazy... Hang on. Sorry. Something on my camera. I've done a bunch of crazy shit in my life with hallucinogenic drugs. And never could I imagine doing anything like that. You know, you hear those old like PSA stories about how fucking some kid would get high on acid and then jump out of a window because he thought he was a bird. And those never made any sense to me. And this story makes even less sense. But I suppose that if you have these horrible thoughts in your head, that acid can take them to the next level. Just like any other substance, just like alcohol could. If you want to fight somebody, but you think better of it, and then you get a couple drinks in you, you might fight that person. A lot of drugs could do that, could take away that inhibition. So I don't really know the answers. I just thought it was a fucking crazy interesting story. If you want to learn more about it, there's a whole Rolling Stone article where the people in the area talk about the case, talk about what it was like back then, talk about Ricky Casso, talk about Jimmy Troiano. And if you really want to go crazy, Jimmy Troiano has a book called Acid King that you can read. But I just thought that was crazy, man. I want to tell you guys about it. Hope you guys have a good week. It's hard to transition out of murder, you know. Drink RC Cola, sway for president, and I will talk to you guys next week.